At Thanksgiving, my sister mocked me for still being single. I said, "I'm married." The room froze. As I showed proof, she'd hidden every invite. The turkey was dry. Of course it was. My mother could never get the time perfect, but no one ever criticized her since I was the only one who received criticism in our family. "Claire, could you please pass the cranberry sauce?" My sister Melissa's voice was dripping with syrupy sweetness, which she had honed over 34 years as the beloved kid. Her diamond engagement ring reflected the light as she stretched across the table, nearly blinding me with its ostentation. I handed her the sauce without commenting. It had been 18 months since I had last sat at this table, and I could immediately recall why I had avoided it. "So Melissa's wedding was absolutely spectacular," Mom said, embarking on what had to be the 14th review of the event I hadn't attended. "The flowers alone cost more than most people's cars. And the venue," she went on. "That country club has a 3-year waiting list, but Melissa's husband, has connections. Ethan knows people everywhere," Melissa said, clutching her husband's arm. He grinned that politician's smile, which he had presumably perfected in the mirror. "It's one of the perks of being a successful litigation attorney." I sliced into my dry turkey without saying anything. This is the game we played. They talked at me, not to me, and I was supposed to sit there and take it all in like an emotional punching bag wrapped in Christmas sweaters. My dad cleared his throat. "Claire, the ceremony was amazing. You truly missed something special." "I'm sure it was lovely," I said, my tone calm. "Lovely?" My mother's fork clattered on her plate. It was the wedding of the century. Everyone who mattered in this town was present, including the Carters, Whitmans, and Mayor Collins. Melissa smiled wider. "We had 320 guests. The response rate was fantastic. Almost everyone we invited arrived. I drank a drink of wine while waiting. A trap was being laid. I could feel it. After 28 years of being disappointed, I recognized the pattern." "Speaking of weddings," Melissa remarked, her tone turning to the condescending tone she saved for me. "When are you going to settle down, Claire? You aren't growing any younger, you know." There it was. Mom interrupted before I could answer. "She's been dating him for 4 years now. What is his name again? James? John? Daniel," I said gently. "Right. Daniel. What is he doing again? Something about computers? He's a software engineer at Microsoft." Melissa laughed, making a tinkling sound like broken glass. "Oh, that's correct. The IT man. Does he even have a suit?" Ethan laughed politely at his wife's joke. My father stared at his plate with deep focus, as he often did when the discourse went harsh. He never took part in the attacks, yet he never stopped them either. In some ways, his quiet hurt more than their words. "When is the big day anyway?" Melissa continued, encouraged by her audience. "Is he dragging his feet? Men can tell when a woman is desperate, you know. It turns them off." I cautiously placed down my fork. My heart pounded, but my hands remained firm. This was it. The moment I had been dreading and expecting for 8 months. "Actually, I had my wedding already," I informed him. The total quiet that fell over the table allowed me to hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corridor. 4 faces looked at me with varied degrees of shock. Melissa's mouth had literally dropped open. "You what?" Mom finally succeeded. "I was married 8 months ago, June 14th to be precise." "That's impossible," Melissa said. "You didn't. We would have. You got invitations," I said calmly, reaching up my wine glass. "All of you did." My father discovered his voice. "Claire, we never got an invitation. We would have come if we had received them." I took out my phone, sliding my fingers across the screen with practiced accuracy. "Let me show you something." I'd had these screenshots for months, waiting for this precise time. The first one displayed the certified postal tracking information, 5 items, 5 addresses, and all signed for on April 24th. "Do you see this?" I turned the phone to my father. "This is a signature confirmation. Someone at this address signed all 5 invites." I focused closely on the signature line. The scroll was obviously Melissa's. My sister's face lost its color. "That could be anything," Mom said quickly, but her voice faltered. I swiped to the next screenshot. "This is an email confirmation from the stationery company. Custom invitations were bought in February and delivered in April. And here, another swipe, is my credit card statement, which shows I paid for Priority Mail Express with signature confirmation to guarantee they came soon." "Melissa," my father said quietly, but there was hardness beneath. "Did you sign for the letter intended to your mother and me?" I do not recall. Maybe I... Melissa's demeanor was breaking like old paint. Let me refresh your memory. I was amazed at how calm I sounded, given how fast my heart was beating. April 24th was a Tuesday. You stopped by early to drop off Mom's birthday present before departing for the conference in Denver. You offered to get the mail while you were here. How can you remember that? Ethan demanded, his legal instincts taking over to protect his wife. Because I contacted Mom that afternoon to check she got the invitation. She stated that no mail had arrived other than some catalogs. That seemed weird to me, given that the tracking showed delivery at 10:42 a.m. When I studied the signature later, I recognized Melissa's handwriting right away. Melissa's face has changed from white to crimson. You had me investigated. I phoned the post office, hardly the FBI. I took another drink of wine, thankful that years of drama lessons in high school had taught me how to project confidence that I didn't really have. But you still haven't responded to Dad's query. Have you signed for our mail? This is ridiculous, Melissa said, standing quickly. I don't have to sit here and be accused. Sit down. My dad's voice cracked like a whip. I had never heard him use that tone before. Melissa sat. He looked at me, his expression confused and even wounded. Why aren't you telling us? Even if we had missed the invites, you may have phoned. This was the question I had been preparing for. I had practiced it in therapy for weeks before agreeing to attend the dinner. I did call, I said, my voice calm. Several times. The first time was May 4th, following 4 weeks of radio quiet. Mom, you said you were busy preparing Melissa's engagement party and would call me back. You did not. Mom opened her lips to complain, but I persisted. I phoned again on May 11th, got voicemail, and left a message that I was frightened since the wedding was just 6 weeks away, and I hadn't heard back from anybody. Nobody phoned back. I opened up my call log. I'd been backing up my phone records for months, just for this time. On May 18th, I phoned Dad's mobile and got voicemail. On May 20th, I texted the family group chat, which I now realize I am no longer a part of. I contacted the house line 3 times on May 25th. On May 29th, we issued an email to everyone. We never got an email, she asserted, because Melissa has access to the family email account and she deleted it. I stared at my sister, who had become extremely motionless, exactly as she had erased the one I sent in April, shortly after mailing the invites. You can't prove that, Melissa muttered. I retrieved the email account activity log. Daniel showed me how to check it. It turns out that if you were the one who created the family email account years ago, you still have recovery access. I gave Melissa a direct glance. The email was opened on April 26th at 8:36 p.m. from this house's IP address, and then erased forever. Someone did not want anyone else to see it. Ethan's expression had changed from protective to calculating. As a lawyer, he knew exactly what the evidence indicated. Claire, Mom murmured, for the first time in years, her voice unsure. Why didn't you drive over here? If you truly wanted us to attend your wedding, you could have. Mom, I live in Seattle. It's a 4-hour drive each ways. I drove that route 15 times in the 2 years leading up to my move. How many times did any of you come to me? 0. The number hovered in the air between us. You came for Christmas, Dad answered hesitantly. I drove here for Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, Mom and Melissa's birthdays, and your birthday. I attended Melissa's engagement party, bridal shower, and bachelorette weekend. I changed my work schedule, spent hundreds of dollars on petrol, and slept on that terrible couch bed in the guest room that smelled like mothballs. My voice stayed calm, but I could feel years of stored hurt forming into words. And you know what? Nobody has ever asked me about my life. No one said, "Hey Claire, how's your work going?" Or, "Are you pleased in Seattle?" It was always about Melissa. That's not fair, Melissa remarked, but her tone lacked conviction. Isn't it? When is my birthday, Melissa? She blinked. What? It's my birthday. Which day is it? Silence. It's October 12th, I announced. I turned 34 this year. Nobody called, nobody texted. I didn't even receive a Facebook message. We've all been so busy, Mom explained. I phoned you for your birthday, Mom. As I do every year. I sent you costly flowers from your favorite downtown store. I remembered. Why couldn't anyone remember me? My dad's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he appeared older. The wedding was beautiful, I said, my voice softening. The rage was drained away, leaving a void in its wake. Daniel and I married at a small church by the seaside. Only us, his parents, his sister, his brother, and perhaps 16 of our closest friends. There are a total of 24 persons. Small, private, and lovely. His mother helped me get into my outfit. When it became evident that my father would not be present, his father led me down the aisle. We exchanged vows that we had written ourselves, and then we had supper at this incredible seafood restaurant overlooking the lake. I picked up a snapshot on my phone of Daniel and me laughing, my veil flying in the coastal air. I appeared cheerful. I'm actually delighted. We honeymooned in Hawaii for 3 weeks, Maui, it was amazing. I scrolled through photographs of sunsets, beaches, the two of us swimming, hiking, and simply living in a place where no one compared me to anybody else. The best 3 weeks of my life, actually. The wedding and honeymoon. Mom reached for the phone, but I grabbed it back. I'm not done. Claire, please. I need to say something. I've needed to say this for years. I glanced at each one in turn. When Melissa got engaged, Mom immediately began preparing. Remember, you called suppliers the same night. You created a Pinterest board. You poured yourself into making her day great. Do you know how that felt? Watching you be so concerned about her happiness while treating mine as an afterthought. We love you both equally, Mom insisted. But the words seemed empty. Do you? Because from where I sit, it's always the Melissa show. Melissa, the cheerleader. Melissa is the homecoming queen. Melissa is the sorority president. Melissa who graduated summa cum laude. Melissa married a wealthy lawyer. Meanwhile, I am simply Claire. Claire has a normal work and a regular existence in Seattle, where no one ever visits. You never seem to want the same things Melissa wanted, Dad replied gently. So that makes me less deserving of your attention and love. I shake my head. I earned a master's degree in environmental science. I work with a charity that is making an impact in water conservation policies. I bought my own condo with no support from anyone. I've constructed a life I'm proud of, yet you've never asked me about it. Do you know what I do all day? More silence. I analyze water usage patterns and develop sustainability models for municipalities, I told you. It isn't glamorous. It will not make me affluent. Last year, however, 40 cities approved laws that I helped to investigate. Millions of people now have improved access to clean water because to the work I did. I am proud of that. I'm proud of the life I've built. We're proud of you too, Mom murmured, but she couldn't meet my gaze. Are you? So why did Melissa throw away my wedding invitations? All eyes were on my sister. She had been silent for long minutes, her face changing hues of crimson and white. Now she appeared to be cornered. I didn't. She began, then stopped. All right. I took them. But you do not comprehend. Then explain it to me. It was meant to be about my wedding. The words sprang out of her like a champagne cork. For once I was supposed to be the center of attention without you trying to steal my thunder. I truly laughed. I couldn't help it. Steal your thunder? Melissa. I have been invisible for years. How could I possibly? You always do it. You appear humble and modest, but then you do these tricks to make others feel sorry for you. Oh, poor Claire. No one notices her. It is manipulation. I sent invites to my wedding. What is the nature of the manipulation? The timing. Melissa was on her feet again, her voice increasing to a volume that likely alarmed the neighbors. My wedding happened in September. You have scheduled yours for June. You were attempting to outshine me by getting married first. The logic was so warped that I nearly couldn't understand it. Melissa, you got engaged in January. You had been dating Ethan for 6 years before that. Daniel proposed to me in December, and we planned a summer wedding since we both enjoy the seashore in June. Your wedding date has nothing to do with mine. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous? The word tasted odd. Of what exactly? Of everything I have, the perfect husband, the big house, the respect in this community. I don't want any of that, I said, and I realized I meant it. I do not want a large house in this town. I don't want to be on any charity boards or join a country club. I just wanted my family at my wedding. I wanted you to see me happy. Well, you should have tried harder to make sure we got the invitations, replied my mother. And I could see her taking sides in real time. This was it. The moment when they banded together around Melissa, rewrote history to make me the villain, and carried on as if this discussion had never occurred. I have watched this movie previously. I knew how it ended. But this time, I was given the option of staying for the credits or leaving. You're right, I responded, rising up and grabbing my purse. I should have tried harder. I should have walked up at your door and made you acknowledge me. But you know what? I am tired of trying. I'm weary of being the person that always reaches out, makes an effort, and then gets slammed down for it. Claire, sit down, Dad instructed. We're not done here. We actually are. I came here tonight because a part of me still hoped that you would notice that you missed my wedding. That you'd be disappointed you weren't there. However, you are not unhappy about missing it. You're unhappy because I'm calling Melissa out for tossing away the invites. She's your sister, Mom said. Family forgives, does it? Because I've been forgiving you guys for years, and I don't think I've ever gotten the same kindness. I pulled on my coat. I forgive you for missing my college graduation because Melissa had a sorority function. I forgive you for canceling our Christmas visit the year Daniel and I first started dating because Melissa required assistance relocating. I forgive you for spending my birthday helping Melissa choose wedding sites. I have done nothing but forgive. Where are you going? Dad inquired. Return to Seattle. Back to my marriage, my house, and my life, which I established without any of you. You're being dramatic, Melissa remarked, her voice shaking slightly. No, I'm done. There is a difference. I started towards the door but then hesitated. For what it is worth, I truly wanted you there, all of you. Daniel's mother continued asking why my family hadn't arrived, and I kept making excuses since I couldn't confess that my own sister had ruined me. His family felt so awful that they attempted to involve me more, which just made it clear that mine didn't care enough to go. Dad responded. We didn't know. And I saw a crack in his voice. You could have known. You had my phone number, email, and address. If you had wanted to be a part of my life, you could have been. Melissa did not truly prevent it. She basically gave you license to continue doing what you were doing, treating me as if I didn't matter. I opened the door. Cold November air swept in, bearing the aroma of withering leaves and the impending winter. Claire, wait, my father said, one hand out. Please, let's talk about this. We have been discussing. Or rather, I've been talking while you've been making excuses. I stepped onto the porch. Do you know what the saddest thing is? Daniel asked if I wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving at his parents' house. His family wished to meet mine. I said no, because I knew you'd all be here to celebrate Melissa. I came regardless because I felt like I owed you one more opportunity. I was wrong. You can't just walk away from your family, Mom remarked through the doorway. Watch me. I got halfway to my car when Melissa's voice stopped me. Claire, wait. She had hurried out without a coat, holding herself against the cold. For a brief moment, she resembled the girl I'd shared a room with for 18 years. The one who used to comb my hair and lend me her clothing before everything turned into a competition I never committed to participate in. I'm sorry, she whispered. And to my amazement, tears streamed down her cheek. I'm very sorry. You're correct. I took the invites. I threw them away. I promised myself I'd just keep them hidden till after my wedding, and then tell everyone. She swallowed breath. Then it was easy to pretend they never arrived. It was easier than admitting what I had done. Why? I asked. Just tell me why. Because you were always the good one, she said, her voice breaking. Everyone always says that. Claire is really brilliant. Claire is extremely committed. Claire doesn't require all of that care. But I needed it. I needed to feel exceptional, and the only way I could do so was to avoid being compared to you. That is insane, Melissa. I was never competing with you. I understand. That's what made things worse. You didn't even try. But people still loved you. She wiped her eyes forcefully. I am the worst sister in the world. I destroyed your wedding. I can't take it back. No, you can't. We stood there in the cold, 3 feet apart and unbridgeable. Will you ever forgive me? She whispered. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday, but not now. Today, I am too furious and upset, and I need to return home, to the person who genuinely shows up for me. I got in my car and drove away, seeing my childhood home fade in the rearview mirror. Before I even got on the freeway, my phone started vibrating with calls and texts from everyone, most likely attempting to digest what had just transpired. I set it to silence. Daniel was waiting for me when I arrived home, even though it was past midnight. He took one glance at me and drew me into his embrace. Is it that bad? He asked. Worse but better. I believe I have finally stated what I needed to say. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. I moved back to look at him. Is your family still celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow? Of course. Mom's already inquiring when we'll arrive. So that's our family now, I explained. The one that actually wants us. I could not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their expressions around the table. Shock, disbelief, and Mom's shuddered look when she realized she couldn't change the story. I kept repeating Melissa's confession on the porch, looking for sincerity in her tears. Had she intended it? Or was it just another performance, damage control to save her reputation as the golden child? Daniel discovered me around 3 a.m., sitting on our balcony in the cold, wrapped in a blanket and looking at nothing. Are you unable to turn off your brain? He inquired, slipping onto the chair next to me. I keep thinking about what Melissa said, about my being the decent guy. How does that make sense? They treated her like royalty my entire life. People's internal narratives don't always match reality. He leaned across and held my hand. She most likely felt pressure to maintain that immaculate image. The dread of falling off a pedestal may be overwhelming. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, it doesn't, but it might explain it. He softly squeezed my fingers. The question is, what do you want to happen next? I had been avoiding thinking about it. For so long the encounter had been my primary aim, and I had made no other plans. What did happen next? Could I really move away from my family forever? Did I really want to? I don't know, I acknowledged. A part of me wants to never talk to them again, but another part. I stopped off, attempting to describe my feelings. I spent so many years trying to win their affection. Maybe I should show to myself that I can live without it. You already exist without it. You have been doing that for years. Have I though? Or have I simply been pretending, secretly hoping they'll wake up one day and see me? It was painful to make the disclosure. Every accomplishment, every milestone, a part of me was still acting for an audience that wasn't there. Daniel remained quiet for a bit, carefully selecting his words. You sobbed when we got engaged. Happy tears, you murmured. But I recall you saying something else. Maybe now they'll take me seriously, you said. I had stated that. I had forgotten. Then the recollection came pouring back. We'd been at the restaurant where he proposed, champagne bubbles still tickling my nose, when those words came out before I could stop them. I wanted them at our wedding because I thought it would finally prove I was worth showing up for. I explained slowly, the reality dawning on me as I spoke. But they didn't arrive. And you know what? Regardless, the wedding was lovely. We were content anyway. I didn't need them there to confirm my happiness. No, you didn't. So why is it still hurting so much? Because you're grieving, Daniel explained simply. You are mourning the family you should have had. The parents who should have celebrated both of their daughters equally, and the sister who should have been your greatest friend rather than your adversary. Claire, that is a big loss. You are permitted to experience it. I allowed myself to cry properly for the first time since leaving that house. Not angry or furious tears, but deep hurting sobs of real loss. Daniel supported me through everything, without attempting to cure or improve anything, but simply being present. When I eventually stopped, drained and fatigued, he asked if I wanted hot chocolate. I nodded, and he went inside. Through the glass door, I saw him walk around our kitchen, which we had designed together and filled with items that made us happy rather than those that were spectacular to others. A kitchen where we'd entertained friends who genuinely cared about us, where we'd cooked, laughed, and made a life. They had missed it all. And suddenly, sitting there covered in my blanket at 3 a.m., I knew it was their loss, not my own. Daniel reappeared with 2 glasses topped with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. He'd even sent the peppermint sticks I adored, which I found during our honeymoon at a small cafe in Lahaina. I love you, I stated. For so many reasons, but right now, especially for remembering the peppermint sticks. I pay attention, he stated with a little smile. It's what people do when they love someone. Such a simple sentence, but it embodied everything my family had failed to achieve. Paying attention, remembering, and showing up. The fundamental building blocks of love that I'd been craving without even recognizing it. Your mom asked me something last week, Daniel replied, stirring his hot chocolate. She inquired whether your family had ever met me before the wedding. When I told her no, she looked very heartbroken. She said every parent would be anxious to meet the one who makes their child light up as you do when we talk about our life together. My throat clenched. She said what? Yes, she did. She then explained that their loss was her gain since she now has you as a daughter. She meant it too. My mother does not say anything she does not intend. I know. I observed it about Helen within an hour of meeting her. She was warm yet honest, caring yet direct. Everything my own mother was not. They want to do a second reception for us, Daniel explained. Nothing major, just family and a few close friends. An opportunity to rejoice with those who genuinely care. My parents want to host it, perhaps in the spring, when the weather is nicer. What are your thoughts? The concept should have seemed off somehow, like a consolation reward. But it did not. It seemed like a gift. I think that sounds perfect, I commented. Can we do it at that lakeside venue? The one with large windows. Already checked. They have availability in May. Of course he had. That is what partners do. They foresaw needs, made arrangements, and turned up. Every single time. We waited on the balcony till dawn began coloring the sky pink and gold. Something fundamental changed inside of me during those silent hours. The rage and hurt persisted, but it no longer seemed like they were engulfing me from the inside out. They became into something I carried rather than something that carried me. Daniel's Thanksgiving was everything that my family's celebration had not been. Yes, it was loud, but it was filled with laughing, rather than anxiety. His sister Olivia met me with a crushing embrace and an urgent need to view more wedding images. His brother Ryan attempted to teach me the family card game, which apparently everyone learns at the age of 6. Helen was concerned about whether I was eating enough, and Daniel's father, Robert, insisted on learning everything about my work. He was truly engaged in water conservation policies in a way that my own parents had never been. So you are telling me that the algorithm you helped build saved Los Angeles 35 million gallons of water in 8 months? Robert leaned forward, his eyes bright with eagerness. That is extraordinary. How did you deal with seasonal change in usage patterns? I described the process, warming to the subject as I usually did when someone was willing to listen. He posed insightful questions, questioned some of my assumptions in a way that made me think rather than feel defensive, and by the end of dinner, I had promised to give him links to our published research. You've got a brilliant wife, he said Daniel as we were clearing dishes. I hope you know that. I do, Daniel responded, catching my gaze across the table. Trust me. I do. Later, despite Helen's protestations, she gently brought up my family situation. Daniel mentioned that things were difficult with your parents during Thanksgiving, she remarked, scouring a roasting pan with more vigor than required. I hope I'm not going too far, but I want you to know that whatever occurred does not affect anything here. We consider you family now. Not because you married Daniel, but because of who you are. I needed to set down the dish I was drying before I dropped it. Thank you. That means more than you realize. I'm a mother, Helen stated simply. I can't picture my children treating you the way yours did. Olivia informed me what happened to the invitations. Is that your own sister? She shook her head. I won't talk poorly of someone I've never met, but I will say this. Their inability to recognize your worth does not reduce yours. It merely shows their ignorance. I'm still processing all of it, I acknowledged. Part of me wants to cut them off entirely. Part of me feels guilty for even thinking about it. Guilt is a powerful tool, Helen explained, washing the pan and placing it on the drying rack. Especially when it has been used against you throughout your life. But here's something I learned while parenting 4 children. Sometimes love isn't enough. People might harm us not because they don't love us, but because they don't know how to love us correctly. And we have the right to protect ourselves from it, even if it comes from relatives. My dad called yesterday, I said. Just checking in. He described it as uncomfortable. Neither of us knew what to say. Typically, the first talks after major revelations. She gave me another plate to dry. The question isn't whether it was comfortable, Helen told me. The question is whether he is willing to perform the difficult effort of genuinely transforming. Words are simple. Consistent activity is difficult. 3 days later, my father sent me an email. A lengthy one filled with apologies, realizations, and pledges to do better. He asked if we could actually discuss about starting fresh. I said, maybe eventually, but I needed time. He replied he understood. Melissa sent a Facebook message. I did not read it. I switched off alerts for the family group chat I had been re-added to, most likely at Dad's suggestion. Ethan issued a LinkedIn request, which I denied. Mom did not contact me at all. It hurt less than I thought. My mother's quiet became an explanation in and of itself. Days stretched into weeks, and while my father's weekly calls continued, brief and circumspect but present, Mom was glaringly absent. I saw Mom in that house, reorganizing the same closets she'd been organizing my whole life, holding her book club, attending her charity luncheons, and living in a world where painful realities could be ignored by sheer force of habit. Work became my shelter throughout those weeks. I immersed myself into a new project investigating drought patterns in the Southwest, thankful for challenges with clear data sets and simple answers. My coworker Lauren noted the increasing intensity. "You're here before me and leaving after me," she said one evening, sticking her head into my office about 7 p.m. "Is everything okay?" "Family stuff," I answered hazily. "Just needed the distraction." She sat across from my desk without invitation, which I usually enjoyed. "Do you want to talk about it?" Surprisingly, I did. I told her everything: the wedding, the invites, and the Thanksgiving confrontation. Lauren listened without interrupting, her face changing from shock to fury to something resembling comprehension. "My sister and I didn't speak for 3 years," she added as I finished. "Different reason. She borrowed money and never paid it back, then behaved like I was the culprit for bringing it up. But the dynamics were comparable. She was the favorite. I was an afterthought. Our parents were always on her side." "How was it resolved?" I asked. "It didn't actually. She ultimately apologized, and we now have a polite relationship, but only on the surface. We will never be as close as we were as children." I had to mourn that connection and accept that the sister I desired no longer existed. "Maybe it never existed in the manner I recall. Is it still hurting?" "Sometimes," Lauren acknowledged. "Mostly on holidays or when I encounter other sisters who are also friends. But I've created my own family. My spouse, our friends, and my chosen folks. They show up for me in ways that my blood kin never have." She arose and stretched. "Give yourself time to think out what you want things to look like in the future. And don't allow anyone shame you into forgiving before you're ready." Her sentiments matched Helen's, reflecting common knowledge from women who had learned to set boundaries the hard way. I was curious how many individuals bore these scars, smiling during family events while slowly bleeding from invisible incisions. That weekend, Daniel and I had a dinner party. Nothing fancy, just 6 friends, decent wine, and the beef bourguignon dish I had been honing for months. Our buddy Sophie brought her new girlfriend, and our neighbor Ben arrived with handmade bread that outperformed my grocery store buns. We ate, joked, and played charades until midnight, and no one asked me about my pregnancy or why I hadn't been home in a while. "This is nice," I remarked to Daniel as we cleaned up afterward, both pleasantly tipsy and exhausted. "This feels like family." "It's family," he said, filling the dishwasher with somewhat less accuracy than normal. "We get to select this. Blood does not have the monopoly on love." I considered this while I scrubbed the wine glasses by hand, seeing soap bubbles catch the light. My parents had always regarded family as an obligation, something to be done regardless of the underlying problems. But what if family was more about connection? What about showing up, paying attention, and creating room for each other's joy? Melissa sent me an email on Tuesday morning, not through Facebook this time, but to my work address, indicating that she had looked up where I worked and obtained my contact information. The subject line was, simply, "Please read this." I gazed at it for 30 minutes before opening it. "Claire, I understand you probably do not want to hear from me. I wouldn't want to hear from myself either. But my therapist insists that I make restitution as part of my healing process. And, while I realize this is ultimately for me, I hope it also helps you. I've been reflecting a lot on why I did what I did. The simple explanation is envy, but it's more nuanced than that. Growing up, I always felt the need to be flawless. Mom and Dad never stated it openly, but I internalized the message that my value was dependent on my accomplishments, good grades, lovely outfits, the appropriate guy, and the perfect wedding. It was all part of the scorecard I was striving to complete to prove I earned their affection. You didn't appear to require that confirmation in the same way. You simply existed firmly in your own place. You didn't care if you weren't the prom queen or if your major didn't wow their peers. And it somehow made you scary to me, because if you could be adored without acting, what did that say about all of my performances? When your invitation arrived, I experienced a moment of terror. Your wedding was going to be the first, and it was going to be modest, private, and genuine. Something mine wasn't. Mine was a large production for 280 individuals, the most of whom I hardly knew. I'd spent a year preparing it with Mom, and somewhere along the road, it shifted from being about Ethan and me to demonstrating something to people whose opinions should not have mattered. I told myself that if I simply delayed everyone finding out about your wedding until after mine, I'd be able to retain the illusion of going first, being first, and winning a competition that only existed in my mind. and then I promised myself I'd come clean. But the more I waited, the tougher it became, until it was simpler to simply pretend it never occurred. I understand that this doesn't solve anything. I realize I deprived you of having your family present on one of the most significant days of your life. I know I harmed you in a way that may be unforgivable. And I know I wounded Mom and Dad by having them miss it and then leading them to believe they didn't receive the invites. I'm now in therapy twice a week, trying to figure out why I so strongly require external affirmation. Why do I perceive everything as a competition? Why can't I be pleased for others without making it about myself? It's difficult labor. I am not liking it. But I am doing it because I no longer want to be this person. I do not expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to answer to my email, but I wanted you to know that I understand what I did. I realize it was wrong. And I genuinely, deeply apologize. I hope you are pleased with Daniel. I hope your life in Seattle fulfills all of your expectations. And I hope that someday, maybe, we might rekindle our relationship as sisters, even if it takes years, even if it never occurs. Melissa. I read it 3 times, analyzing each phrase for sincerity, manipulation, and any resemblance to the sister I knew before everything turned complex. The remarks appeared sincere, but Melissa had always been gifted with words. I sent it to Daniel without remark. Then to Lauren. After nearly an hour of hesitation, I went to my father. He responded within minutes. Claire, she's trying. That is all I can tell you. It is up to you to decide whether it is enough. Was she trying, or was this simply another act, therapy speak, performed in the service of her own rehabilitation with no regard for the harm she'd done? I could not tell. And the unknown was its own form of pain. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, a gift came at my doorstep. Inside was a wedding card, unopened and addressed to my parents, one of 5 invitations. My father's message stated that he discovered it while assisting Melissa in cleaning out some storage boxes from the garage. She'd stashed them all there, seemingly expecting they'd be overlooked among the holiday decorations and old tax records. I showed Daniel. We admired the gorgeous calligraphy and the carefully crafted wording asking my family to share our love. Should we keep it? He asked. No, I said. Let's put it in the album anyway, as a reminder of what they missed, of what we built without them. Christmas came and went without a visit to my hometown. New Year's too. My father phoned once a week and we had brief discussions about the weather and work, avoiding anything substantive. It was something, I guess, maybe. In February, Melissa left me a voicemail. She was in treatment, dealing with her difficulties. She stated she understood if I never wanted to speak with her again, but she was trying to improve. She hoped I was pleased. I was. In March, Mom fell and shattered her hip. Dad called, his voice raspy from weariness, asking if I could come help. Before driving down, I gave it a lot of thought, more than I probably should have. Not because I'd forgiven anything, but because I was choosing to show up after years of not being asked properly. When I came into that hospital room, Mom shed real tears, not the fake sort she was so skilled at. She apologized for not being the mother I needed. She stated she'd been thinking about all the ways she'd failed me while laying in that hospital bed, with nothing to do except ponder. Maybe she intended it. Maybe it was the painkillers talking. I didn't know, and I astonished myself by realizing I didn't have to know right immediately. I'm here, I informed her. That's enough for today. Melissa turned up that evening. We sat on opposite sides of Mom's bed, not speaking directly to one another but also not ignoring each other. Small steps. I remained for 4 days, assisting Dad with housekeeping, dealing with insurance companies, and managing prescription regimens. On the final day, he hugged me tightly and thanked me for attending. You didn't have to, he said quietly. After everything, I understand. But I wanted to. I drew back and faced him directly. I'm not totally recovering, Dad. This does not erase what occurred. But I'm not disappearing either. We'll find out something in between. He nodded, perhaps for the first time, his eyes filled with comprehension. The journey back to Seattle seemed different. Lighter, as if I'd released a weight I'd been carrying for so long that I'd forgotten it was there. I contacted Daniel from a rest break and said I was on my way home. How are you feeling? He asked. Like myself, I said. Finally. That, more than anything else, was cause for celebration.